Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook. So you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one size fits all protocols, just real answers, deep rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to our show. And good afternoon, Lacey.
Hi, Shannon.
So excited you're here, guys. This is going to be a fantastic topic and talk, I should say. Lacey is incredible, and I can't wait for you to share all of your knowledge with our listeners. But she is a functional women's health coach who really helps women get to the root cause of their symptoms through health foundations and functional lab testing, as well as some nervous system rewiring. So we're going to just jump right in. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, by the way. I'm super excited. It's so funny anytime I get asked that question because I'm like, okay, so when I was born, because it really has been like a lifelong journey to get me to the point where I discovered functional health and went down that route. But I'll try to give you the short summary. So it is true. I was on antibiotics in the first 2 years of my life, probably like 6 or 7 times. And from that point, I was always just kind of like a sick kid. Like I was always crying, or I always had stomach aches, or I always had headaches, or there was just always like weird things going on with me for my whole entire like early life, adulthood, and up until like 2 years ago. I would say I'm still even going through it. It's not really, it's never ending, but I ended up nothing crazy anyways. So headaches, stomach aches, whatever. And then I ended up going on birth control when I was 14 years old, as the typical early 90 baby does. And my mom put me on it because I had an older boyfriend at the time. And I got my period one time. And so I got it, and then she immediately put me on it. And so I didn't even have like a full cycle. And so that's how I first entered that phase. And so was only on it for 4 years because once I graduated high school, went to university, I'm very much like a type B, a little bit of ADHD in there. And so I just didn't renew my prescription. Thank goodness, because I only was on it for 4 years, and a lot of women are on it a lot longer than that. But if I really look back, like me coming off birth control in that first year of university was really like the catalyst to my entire fitness journey because I gained a whole bunch of weight. I went through crazy hormone fluctuations. I would only get my period once every 4 months. And I remember actually going to the doctor during that time, and he said to me, like, oh, you're just one of the lucky ones. Like, you get it with the seasons. Don't even worry about it. And at that point, my periods were very, very painful. So it was kind of cool to only get it every 4 years. And this was back, not to age myself, but back in 2009, 2010. And so we didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know I was having crazy hormone issues. I didn't know I gained weight because I came off the pill. I thought I gained weight because I was living by myself and like buying my own food for the first time in my entire life. There was no correlation whatsoever. And so gained weight, and then through that went on crazy fad diets, took crazy fat loss pills, did that whole shebang for like 4 or 5 years, lost 20 pounds, gained it back, lost 20 pounds, gained it back. And then after university, after 5 years, I moved to a new city where a lot of people were involved in bodybuilding. And at that point, although I struggled to keep the fat off based on like the binge and restrict cycle, so I was always under eating during the day and overeating at night, and like my nutrition was just off. We had no idea. That was back in the day when fat was bad and nobody was eating fat, and like it was just a whole thing. But something that stayed very consistent throughout those 4 years in university was I loved the gym. Like, never struggled to go to the gym, always was consistent. I like loved lifting heavy, loved setting personal records. Like, I was obsessed. And so when I moved to this new city where bodybuilding was very prominent, I very quickly became intrigued. I like started a dating guy that was a bodybuilder, and slowly started like counting macros and discovering that whole world and following a meal plan. And then I was like, okay, I want to compete, but I was so nervous. I was like, I'm just going to hire a coach and do a cut first. And so I did a cut. And anyways, through that whole journey, ended up getting very competitive in bodybuilding, ended up losing my period for 3 years consecutively, as also a lot of competitors tend to do, which isn't normal. But I always was just really scared to gain the weight back. And so I was someone, I never like rebounded like crazy after bodybuilding shows or gained a whole bunch of weight. I just stayed way too lean and was basically under eating for like 4 years straight. And so through losing my period during that time, I also developed an autoimmune disease. So I developed psoriasis. And I was very lucky because a lot of people with autoimmune, they'll get flares or it'll get worse and then they'll get better and then they'll get worse. But mine always just stayed consistent. It didn't hurt me. It never flared. But I kind of looking back think that was just because I had a very steady diet, even though it was a bodybuilder diet. I never ate like bad, greasy foods, quote unquote bad. um, and so yeah, that kind of started that whole thing. And then finally one day I woke up after like starting my health coaching company and helping women eat more and get stronger. And I was preaching that, but it was very hard for me to follow my own advice. And so after 2 years of bringing women through reverse dieting and encouraging them to eat more, I was like, okay, Lacey, it's time. You got to get your period. Like you have enough proof that this works. So just do it. You're not going to gain weight. And so I finally committed to that, got my period back, but still my autoimmune disease was crazy and just felt very bloated, inflamed. Like I remember always telling my friends, like, I just feel like 6 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant. Like, look at me, I'm so bloated. And even though I was relatively lean, I just look inflamed. And so kind of going through that, I also used to do a little bit of business coaching and I ended up business coaching a functional practitioner. And I was just telling her about like my journey and what I was going through. And she's like, oh, I can heal your autoimmune. Like that's 6 months gut protocol, psoriasis, that's always linked to your gut. You're gonna be fine. And I'm just like, at this point, I had tried so many things. I just came off like a raw vegan diet protocol that what they told me was going to cure my psoriasis. So I had like tried it all. And at this point, I was like, what? 6 months in a supplement protocol? Like, sign me up. And so I did a couple of functional tests and seen that my gut health was an absolute mess. I also did a hair tissue mineral analysis and learned that I was what we call 4 low. Do you do HTMA at all?
I used to do HMAs for every single client, no matter what, who came in our program. Now I do bioenergetics primarily.
Okay, but so you're familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 4 low, it's pretty much you're in a state of complete
Everyone's
exhaustion.
freaking the four lows. It's just like I can look at a person in 2 seconds and be like, four low.
4 low.
A weird way of like functional people talk, but yes.
Yeah. So that was me. So my body was extremely depleted and yeah, gut dysbiosis, multiple parasites, gut infections, like the whole thing. And so it was true. I did 6 months protocol and healed. And just through like naturally sharing my journey on Instagram, started to attract people started asking questions. And I had one of my coaches at the time, also, who's my sister, she was going through a fertility journey and had was experiencing like a lot of miscarriages. She experienced four in general, and she was just kind of also into this like root cause healing thing. And so she ended up getting her functional dietistic nutritionist practitioner certification. And so at that point, we kind of just made the pivot and ended up going down that route. And then we just grew a team of functional practitioners. But yeah, that's kind of how, long story short, I'm like, people hate asking me that question because I'm like, it's long, but that is long story short. So that's kind of how I ended up in the functional space is just through my own journey, happened very organically. And then also just realizing like all the missing parts that Western medicine doesn't realize when it comes to root cause healing or even just prevention over correction. And so through that became very, very passionate about the holes that are in Western medicine and just spreading the message a little bit. And through doing that, realized how much it's needed. And so, yeah, that's it.
That's it. No, I love what you said too about bringing it like way back because I think people think that a lot of their problems just happen just out of nowhere. And, especially, I mean, I told you I do a little more bioresonance, not a little more, that's like mainly my practice testing. And a lot of times it's linked to childhood, whether it's, vaccination toxins that their body's kind of having a hard time detoxing with, their antibiotic overuse that their body just kind of, gosh, I see strep infections all of the freaking time show up on scans that people's bodies can't clear, and it's like this runs so much deeper than just oh, I had a bad breakup and suddenly this happened. It was like that was the few water drops that overflew your
Yes.
overdid your bucket. You know what I mean? And that's why when you take a root cause approach or a functional approach, it's not just, which we'll talk about this too. It's like, you can do the supplements or the food adjustments too, and there's always like a little bit of the still missing puzzle piece, which we talked about a little bit before we recorded. So I'd love to hear a little bit on how you integrate not only the functional labs, but when you find they're needed, and also the role I know for you, nervous system has played in all of this as well.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's funny. My favorite saying is always like, you can bet that I'm going to be able to connect your childhood trauma to your symptoms that you're experiencing now. Because even on top of like the vaccines and everything like that, it's like also, did you experience any childhood trauma? Because our body stores emotions in crazy weird ways, but it really just gets people thinking, I think, because you're totally right. People just think like, oh, one day I woke up and I'm super bloated or whatever. It's like, no, no, no. Even with me with my autoimmune, I can't even imagine how many years it took my body to be able to finally say, okay, we're going to give her an autoimmune disease. So hopefully she starts paying attention, right? And so, no, I love that you highlighted that. But yeah, for me, we are very similar to how you used to be. So only as of recent, in the last 4 months, we started doing HTMA with every single client that comes into our container, and we do it right away just because we really believe that it is super foundational with minerals. And how our kind of belief is get you doing the foundations. So foundations for us are like eating a nutrient dense, mainly whole food diet, drinking filtered water, remineralizing it, getting morning sunlight, having good sleeps, moving your body, getting outside. I think that's pretty much it. But so many people overlook those foundations and they think that what's going to save them is, oh, this functional lab and this supplement protocol, and I want to do that. And it's kind of like this new, even in the last year, it's become a lot more well known, I would guess, or like even popular. People are kind of, talking about it. There's a lot more companies like mine and yours going around, which is amazing because we need it and I love it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that if you're not eating good, if you're not sleeping, if you're not pooping, if you're not seeing morning sunlight, like if you're staring at your screen in your bed, looking at your phone every night, like no supplement protocol is going to come and save you. You know what I mean? And so we do the HTMA first things. It does take a couple weeks to get their results in. So that's kind of like our way to tell them, hey, we're going to work on foundations because these are important. And even if you think you're good at them, you're probably not. And that's the first part of any protocol, anyways. It's like, okay, are you doing these things? Because if you're not, your body's not going to be able to handle the deep supplement protocol. And so work on the foundations if they are ready and can handle a supplement protocol. Once we get their HTMA results, we will kind of just go right into that. And we see the HTMA as being like the foundational to deeper rooted issues. So after a client kind of completes the first 12 weeks with us, maybe they're halfway through that supplement protocol, they've got the foundations down, they're going and feeling way better. Then what we've seen is 70% of people, they don't need any further testing, even though they came to us because they're bloated and they're exhausted and they can't lose fat or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm actually feeling way better. Turns out I just needed the foundations, right? Because a lot of people, that's all they need. They don't have these intense gut infections or gut dysbiosis or parasites like I did. They just needed to do the foundations. And so that's why we kind of just like buy some time, do the HTMA, get that situated. And the reason why we started to include the HTMA was we just like, I don't think we've ever seen one optimal. Like never, not one.
I don't think I ever saw one that was like, oh, I
No. So
feel
we're
like
like, okay, well,
not
we're just
that
gonna give
bad.
this to everyone. It's a pretty like affordable, functional test, and it does help people buy into the process a little bit. Just being able to see results on paper, like, oh, I am four low, I am exhausted, like I am gonna have a nap. I'm not gonna just push through. And so it gets a little bit more buy-in from the client. And then, yeah, once they're through that protocol, the next functional test that we will do, if and only if it's needed, we're definitely not, I always say lab pushers, because we're not, and we don't believe that everyone needs them. But after that, usually the GI map is the next in line. We very rarely test hormones just because hormones are validating to know what's kind of going wrong, but from our functional side of things, they don't really tell us why. It's like, okay, cool, your estrogen is low. Why? We don't know. Oh, cool, your progesterone is low. Why? We don't know. And so hormones aren't really root cause. They're usually stem from nervous system dysregulation, gut issues, which comes first, the egg or the chicken. We don't really know, but they're just not really root cause. So we'll usually wait those unless we do have a client that's like on a pregnancy journey or whatever. But usually we'll go straight to the GI map because then if they have replenished their minerals, they're feeling better, they have more energy, then their body can, and they've done the foundations now for 3 to 5 months, their body will be able to handle a deeper gut protocol, because if you just throw yourself into that and you're not pooping or you're not sweating or whatever, you are going to get sicker way before you're going to get better. And the healing process is just going to be a lot longer. And so it is super important that you are very strong in those foundations and that you're not completely depleted in minerals prior to entering a gut protocol. So, did that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, back when I was doing a lot more labs, and I would get sometimes pushback from functional practitioners who are like, well, no, you need to be doing a GI map like right off the bat. I was like, no, I really don't. Because first of all, it's an expensive test, right? Like,
Yeah, super expensive.
it's like, and then you add supplements on top of it. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. It's an investment well worth the money. I personally have a very strong, crazy story about my GI map test and how it saved my life, right? Many years ago. But not everybody needs it. Like bloating. I love taking approach very similar to you. I loved the HTMA first, right? Because almost everybody's depleted, but it is validating. So many clients come in, type A, high stress, tell me they're not stressed out, and that's not the reason they can't lose weight. It's like
Yeah.
on this, and you're like, see.
Yeah, actually.
And they take it a little more seriously, right? And so that, for nothing else, my functional practitioner and I would always joke, like, if nothing else, it's just like that is worth its weight in gold for some people. Um, but yeah, I mean, most clients will be able to fix. Now, if you can't, I think it's really great to be able to have those tools to be able to run additional tests. But I mean, gosh, I have so many clients, I'm sure you're the same, who have gone to like, you know, and this is not hitting on anybody, but naturopaths or functional doctors or, and then they're spending 5 grand on labs right off the bat. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
no,
And they're not giving any opportunity, like one, they're not helping them at all with the foundations of the lifestyle. They don't even care. And or helping them integrate it, right? Like that's why I think we just are such a special thing in the sea, like both mine and your businesses, because it's one thing to just follow a supplement protocol and you always experience temporary relief. Of course you do, right? And so you kind of think you're getting what you want, but then 2 months, 4 months, 6 months passes, and then all of a sudden your symptoms are back and you're like, why? And it's like, well, you never changed the environment that caused the symptoms to appear in the first place, right?
alas, like literally, that's hit the nail on the head. And I mean, that, you hear words like foundations, and you're like, nah, I've done it, right? I don't want to do the basics. It's like, but the
Yeah.
basics you think are working are restriction, eating a salad, and maybe taking your, fancy supplement your friend, you know, Tracy across the street told you about, right? That's not the true foundations, and it's not necessarily bio individual, right? And so it's like those foundations are the key. I
They're
also
so important. And like, I couldn't make it any more obvious to you listening. Like, if you put in 30 days to those things, like eating whole nutrient dense foods, making sure you're getting enough sleep, getting morning sunlight, actually resting and moving your body, like you would dramatically change your life in 30 days. Like, it would be crazy. And people are so resistant to it because they are waiting for that easy out because we've just been so like I can't think of the word, but by society, pressured by society for the quick fixes, the instant gratification. And it's like, no, you need to change your lifestyle and then do this forever. But I always say, like, the hardest part for women on a healing journey is like letting it be slow, letting it be easy, and not having like that all or nothing because it's just so hard for anyone to slow down. And usually, like you said, if you got yourself into that mess, it's like you're the type A, you're the perfectionist. And so many women have spent more time dieting and restricting than they have like fueling their body for optimal health. And it's just like, no kidding, your body is fighting you. Like, it's like, imagine you did that to anyone else. Like, if you did that to anyone else, they would also fight you and hate you and not do anything you said. Like, I'm just like, it's crazy.
so true. And something that I've realized a lot over the years too is you want to find that one thing. People are looking at that one problem. Right now, parasites are really big, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure, the parasite. And then one thing I love to tell clients, especially when they do bioresonance, is like, hey, we're resonating with a lot of parasites, but that doesn't necessarily mean it. Usually, when you're at low frequency, nervous system, right? A lot of parasitic people in your life, that lowers your body's frequency, right? That's why you keep getting all these parasites continually. It's not because, of I mean, don't get me wrong, sushi and things like that can definitely have it, but your body is just like an open vessel for all of the things.
100%.
And it's like we can keep going through a damn parasite cleanse. Don't get me wrong, they have their time and place. But it's like it is so much deeper. And one thing I've found over the years with people who have done all of the labs, right? Maybe they're coming, is it's not only that they get better than they digress, it's this huge mindset shift that happens because you think you're broken. You're like, oh, I have all of these issues. I have estrogen dominance, I have thyroid issues, I have parasites, I have candida, I have, and then you start listing, and then it starts to become your identity. And then, especially when you're working with somebody not hands on, like that's why we do 12-week programs, right? People are like, well, can I just do a session? No, girl. You know,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, and if you want it, that's okay. I'm just not the practitioner for you. Same with you, right? It's because then you have to rewire your whole body to not make that your identity. You're not broken, you're healing. But then I was guilty of this, maybe you too. When I first did my first lab, I just paid for a lab. That was it. And like one session, great. But then I was so scared to introduce more foods. I was so scared this was going to come back. It was like, so yes, I felt better, but then I spent years being like trapped,
yeah.
like worried. I had a horrific autoimmune disease where I went from winning a bodybuilding show to being crippled, walking with a cane. So like, I was like, I never want to go back to that. So I'm just going to stay in this bubble that healed me. And then I'm sure so many people are
Oh,
saying,
we hear that even from current clients when we're like, okay, like this is what it looks like to continue healing. And they're like, oh no, I'm great. Like if I don't eat gluten or dairy or apples or blueberries or this, or if I don't go outside on Wednesdays, like if I don't, and then I'm fine. And I'm like, well, like you can be fine without like avoiding your whole entire life forever. But they don't even realize it's possible. They're like, oh, I figured out what maintenance looks like for me, and I'm okay to stay here. And I'm like, you're really going to live your whole life like this, which is impossible. You can't, right? Which is why people always end up going backwards or getting their symptoms back or whatever it is. But yeah, no, it's always definitely have had so many people ask for just labs, and we've had to stand very strong. But I know it's wasting your money. Like, and it doesn't matter how many labs you've done before. It's like you will waste your money if you just buy these labs and we give you an interpretation and a protocol. So yeah, we've had to stand strong on that, but
Mhm.
it's for their best case anyways.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, well, it's funny because now with bioresonance work, I will do just scans only, but with that, I can at least understand clients' trauma and nervous system work and give them like a much more well-rounded like idea of what's going on. So at least I
Well,
feel
even just you knowing that too, so you can set that stage. Like, look, you can't just take what I say on this call and take your supplements and go. Like, you have to change your lifestyle. You have to change the environment where parasites do thrive inside you. Like, why, right? So, yeah, no, it's interesting, but I get it. Everyone is like that for a reason, right? And it's because of the good old society, but we're trying to change it.
you try to go on social media and it's like then and I get it. Like this is content and this pushes likes, but it's like this is the one thing that
Yeah.
and then they'll get like 5,000 comments and I'm like, "Oh, I
Oh
guarantee
yeah.
something."
No, selling foundations is super hard.
Like guess what the one thing sunlight swipe, right?
Yeah.
Did that. And yeah, it's tough and I get it. Like as a woman too, you're most of the women that probably come to you, I know a lot of us, they're in this like analysis paralysis mode. They've done maybe a lot of the things, but a lot of they're in like research mode, right? And it's like, oh, this thing, and then they want to research it and it sounds great. And they're like, bye, and then they take it and then they're like, oh, that didn't work. And then you start feeling my body's broken. Nothing's working for me. And it's like, no, it's
Yeah.
just
It's
that one.
like, no, it's not, it's just not one thing, but that's why you like have to let it be easy and look for things that you can easily integrate into your life. And then I always just like pick one thing at a time and then move to the next. But we kind of created within our coaching container like the wellness, what do we call it? Wellness pyramid, where it's like the foundations are at the very bottom, and then at the very top is like parasite cleansing and castor oil packs and like red light masks and whatever. Because, like you said, so many people just invest in those things, those one habit, and they're like, well, why aren't I, feeling better? And it's like, well, because you get 6 hours of sleep and you like snooze your alarm 8 times. Like, it's like you can't out habit, out purchase, whatever those foundations, and it is what 70%, and I just say 70% of people, that's a total made up statistic based on what I feel like I see in my own program. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, no, it's wild. But I think it's shifting, hopefully, a little bit, and people are starting to realize it's just the sooner you can realize, the better, because the less money that you'll waste and the better you'll feel more quicker. So
And that's the thing too. I'm like, when clients are talking about investing, I'm like, I know it might not make sense to you. I guarantee this is going to save you money in the long run. Like, you
yeah.
don't have to, like go through random supplements and, social media. Like, it's going to work for your body, right?
Yeah.
Specifically, it's going to work for your body. And, going through those foundations, going through the tests is amazing. But also, I know you had mentioned when we had talked like inner child healing, and like understanding where this came from too, the things that you don't think are prevalent, but as you go down this healing journey are like, huh, maybe this is playing a factor. Let me explore this a little more. And then suddenly things move quicker. And it's
Oh yeah, it's all, yeah, we do a lot of like rewiring mindset. Well, and it comes back, which you originally asked me, and I never answered that question about like nervous system. But nervous system dysregulation is just so massive in the healing journey. And some people's nervous system went into a state of fight or flight and never went back from childhood trauma, and something that I had to be, or I had to learn to understand, because I was definitely that person that was like, I had a great childhood. I don't have any trauma. Everything is great. I'm not stressed. But through just learning and researching and talking to more people, like we all have trauma, and it doesn't, I always kind of categorize it as capital T trauma, which is the more obvious trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, whatever, that kind of thing, where if anyone told you, you'd be like, that is traumatizing. That makes sense. But little t trauma is like, maybe you asked your mom for a toy in the store and she picked you up, threw over your shoulder and said absolutely not and left. And you didn't feel like your needs were met in that moment, right? So there's such a range of trauma. And it doesn't mean that someone that experienced capital T trauma versus someone that experienced little t trauma doesn't mean that those two people carry that trauma, even though the trauma was so differently. A lot of the times it's stored in our body in the exact same way. And so if you refuse to look at that, or even refuse to be open-minded, because some people do have like this protected thing about their child, like, no, nothing bad happened. And I'm like, well, it's normal, like it's okay. And it probably did. But if you can kind of start to connect the dots, like it can be very interesting, it can be very healing, but that's why I always say like the healing journey is crazy. There's no way you're going to want to do it on like yourself, and the things that just can start to come up and the emotions that you can release when you do start healing is insane. And it's also like shedding those layers of you that you have kind of put onto yourself over the years to protect yourself or to people please or to, be that high perfectionist, which is like a lot of the women that we work with. It's like you put on those guards as a reason, and now we're telling you you have to set boundaries. You can't put everyone beside or before you, right? And they're just like, they don't know what to do because that's how they live their whole entire life. And then when they start to unpack the reasoning why they are that, and even their awareness starts to raise around, oh, I do that. I never put myself first. I'm always prioritizing everyone else. You can start to see and look back of like, oh, why did you start to take on that like protective layer of needing to people please, of needing to be the high achiever, whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, it's because, my mom said this or my dad said this or whatever. And so, yeah, it's so cool and so interesting, but I think it's a huge missing part in a lot of people's healing journey is they're just not doing like the mindset part of it. But it's like what you said, if you associate your identity with your symptoms, you're never going to get better. Like our words are so powerful, and so the awareness is just so important.
Yes, I love what you just said too. Because if you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it with like the big T, little t, it's not always how big the trauma was. It's how your body internalized it. And I always joke, I was like, somebody could have kicked you down in your kindergarten playground and said,
Oh,
you're fat. And suddenly that became like, a huge identity crisis for you that carried on your whole life, or just like took away your ball and was like, you aren't good enough to have this. This is mine, right? It sounds so silly. And like, don't get me wrong, years ago, probably 5 years ago, I would have been like, okay, cool.
yeah, oh, 100%. And I think too, like, because I love my parents, we have the best relationship. but I've like talked to them about this of like, okay, like this is probably where but it's not their fault either. And like you don't blame your parents like that. Everyone is doing the best that they can, and it's almost impossible not to put a little bit of trauma to your children. You're probably doing it to your own kids, and so you don't have to create this big narrative that it's like your parents' fault that you are the reason that you are. It's just it is your responsibility to heal it and to figure it out and to kind of go back to that setting and pretty much heal and deal with it the way that it should have been dealt with so that your nervous system can let go. Because when we do experience trauma, we do get stuck in that response of stuck in fight or flight, and then our body just stays there if it wasn't dealt with the way that it should have been, which it usually isn't because we're kids and we don't know how to stand up for ourselves. We don't really know what's right from wrong. And yeah, so it's important to kind of connect the dots and it becomes kind of fun, I think.
Practitioner brains were like, this is so fun to figure
Yeah.
that chronic self like development personality. But it's true. And I mean, it's always so funny, say funny, a little relative, like on my scans, I can see generational trauma. It shows up as generational emotional mapping. And I'll be like, where do you think that this kind of came from? And sometimes they're like, no issue. And sometimes it like unlocks something they didn't even know they were holding back. And it's like, whoa, it's like the floodgates opened. And they were like, I had no idea I was holding on to that. It's like, but your body did. And that's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about this work. And one thing that always gives me chills when I talk about it is like, you're not only healing yourself, you're healing generational patterns. Like, and especially you talked about, family and having kids and things like that. And it's like, this is so much bigger than even ourselves. It's like you not only physiologically pass on your, gut microbiome and things like that to your kids, but also your nervous system and the state of your nervous system. And it's like they pick that up too. So it's like yes, you technically got it from your parents, but they probably didn't heal things they didn't know were possible from their parents, and vice versa, right? And you
Well,
don't
100%. That's what I always say. It's like, you think you had it bad. Imagine what their childhood was like, right?
right?
Like and we're now lucky because we have so much more access and have so much more knowledge around all of this stuff and raising children and everything like that. But they didn't. But it's kind of, I think you did mention like the inflammation bucket. That's what we call it, or the toxic bucket or whatever. But pretty much, is your audience like familiar with that if I went off that, or should I explain it?
You can explain it because everybody calls it something different, but I talk about it a decent amount. But I think
Yeah. It's pretty much, I don't know if it's a theory or an idea or whatever it is, but that each individual person has like a inflammation bucket or a toxic bucket, and pretty much your genetics do create like the size of the bucket is how we explain it, but your environment, your lifestyle choices create how quickly that bucket fills. And once it fills, that's how much your body can kind of handle and withhold. And then once it starts overflowing, that's when you start to experience symptoms. And so everyone is different, but those childhood traumas or any trauma, right? It doesn't even have to be linked to your childhood. What we always talk about a lot with our clients is like the amount of times I talk to people and I'm like, oh, when did your symptoms start to get worse? And they're like, oh, 2020, like right when
yes,
COVID, right when the pandemic. And I'm like, okay. And like, regardless if you got the shot or you didn't, or you lost your job or you didn't, or whatever your beliefs were, whatever side you were on, that as like a collective whole was so traumatizing for every single person. It is crazy how much that kind of filled people's toxic inflammation buckets up to a point where they were now overflowing because it's so many people. It's great. And then I'm like, oh, so like right around the time of COVID, and they're like, oh yeah, wow, that's weird. And then they like kind of like think about it. But I just find it's really fun to kind of connect your symptoms and just to raise awareness of like, when did they start popping up? What was going on in my life at that point? And then you kind of get a little bit more bought into what we've been talking about because you're like, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. Oh yeah, a lot of people they sometimes they'll refer to 2020, but it's like about 5 years ago. I was like, was there anything 5 years ago that you think might have changed? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, just anything you can think of.
Yeah. They're
They're
like,
like,
oh yeah, I lost my job and my whole family like, hated me because I didn't want to get the shot, and I had to break up with my husband. Like, okay, well, that's probably it.
Getting trauma, I'm fine. you know, but it's so true though. It's like people don't realize that it's a survival mechanism. Like we forget sometimes. Like this is actually a big thing with childhood, right? People just forget full years of their childhood. And they're like, yeah, I just don't remember those years. Not a big deal. I'm like, it's actually a trauma response. Not that I'm, it's a little out of my scope of practice, but it's crazy to think like that's actually our body holding on, like needing to survive and just trying to forget certain things and push it down, just keep going.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes in this healing journey, which could be a whole nother hour conversation, is bringing up things that are uncomfortable to, bring them up so they can go out, right? But a lot of times we don't want to face that stuff. And so it's like, but can you just give me some, antimicrobials because I have candy, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yes, and I can do that. But it's like we have to address the things that are just not as always comfortable to talk about. Like inner child work is not fun for everybody. It's a trip.
It is a trip. And especially for those, like I mentioned, who had quote unquote good childhood. Like for me, like it was so hard to go down that route because there was just some like protective thing that I had over my parents where I'm like, there is no way they like did any harm or like caused this for me. And so many people, like my husband's the exact same way, like trying to help him understand his childhood and his traumas. And he's like, no, I had the best childhood ever. And I'm like, well, it doesn't mean that they like beat you every night. Like it can mean anything. Like they just left you crying in your crib for too long one day. Like it's hard and it's not easy. And a lot of people aren't ready for that, but you will become ready after you try just doing the supplement protocol or just doing the one-off habits for years and years and years until eventually you have no other choice. And you're like, okay, I remember these crazy girls on the internet talking about childhood trauma. I best go look into that now. Because that is really like the full healing journey from like a holistic, you don't get to skip that stuff because a lot of that is what, like I said, kind of made us put on these different masks or created this type of person or this type of environment where different symptoms and stuff will arise just to kind of show you like, hi, pay attention. I'm super dysregulated and I need help.
Yep. Oh my God, so true. And that's why I think being in containers, in like 3 month containers, 6 months, whatever it is, are so powerful because sometimes people aren't receptive. And I'm like, if you're listening to this, I want you to know that's okay. We're all on our own journey. I am sure you and I are very aligned with like, we did all of the things first before diving into nervous system work. That was the
Oh
work.
yeah, I ate raw vegan for 9 months, you guys. Raw
Uh,
vegan. No, nothing cooked. Before I was like, I'm gonna do some mindset work. But even you mentioned about just like the awareness, something I always talk about that was a massive catalyst for me in my healing journey was journaling and just developing that relationship with myself where I was brave enough to face what was kind of going on in my brain. But it took me a long time to get to that point. And I always say, like, building that relationship with yourself is like building any other relationship. It's not like you would go up to a random person on the street and be like, hey, this is my childhood trauma. And guess what happened? And this is what I'm doing, right? It would take you probably a year at least even to talk to like your good friend about what you experienced as a child. Like everyone's obviously very different, but it's the exact same way with the relationship with yourself. And so you can't pull out your journal tomorrow morning and be like, okay, I'm going to do childhood healing and this is exactly what I've experienced and blah, blah, blah. Like my first year of journaling was just like a play by play of what I was doing that day. I was like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to answer my clients and I'm going to do this. And then slowly I began to trust myself and I was like, okay, like I really think this is a toxic relationship that I'm in. And like, I think it kind of stemmed from me being insecure about, you know what I mean? And I like but it took me so long and people just like jump right in and they're like, I don't have anything to write about. I have nothing on my mind. And I'm like, no, you just need to like put in some work. And everyone's different. Journaling doesn't work like that for everyone. But that was such a catalyst for me because once I did develop that relationship with myself and I trusted myself enough to open up, I could only like write about my toxic patterns for so long before I was like, I can't write about this again. If I'm going to do this again, like I need to end this. And then I stopped like binging at night. I got out of the toxic relationship because I like just didn't want to write about it anymore. But it took me like 2 years of writing about it every day for me to even realize like, wow, I'm sick of this pattern that I'm in. And so, yeah, it's super important to start connecting the dots, but it can take time to develop that journey. So if you've ever tried to journal and kind of felt, well, this isn't for me, like it takes time to develop a relationship with yourself and you're not going to just open up and trust yourself. And usually we also have like rocky foundations with the relationship with ourselves because we're so easy to like lie to ourselves or talk bad about ourselves. It's like think about how much you'd say to yourself, like, I hate the way I look. I hate the way I feel. Like, I look fat. And now all of a sudden you're expecting that you have like this amazing personal relationship where you can just like open up. Like, no, it's like any other relationship and you have to start treating it that way. Or you won't find success, especially in like that journaling realm. But yeah, it was a
Mhm.
game changer for me, for sure.
Man, I'm so glad you said that. That's such in a quick fix society too, it's like you don't think about quick fix and journaling too, you know? It talks a lot about, a diet or a supplement protocol or whatever, but like that's a really important point. Like you have to build that trust within yourself too to even open up. And that's like, sometimes with clients journal, I'm like, hey, you're gonna open it up and you're gonna write just like one good thing that happened today. That's it. Like you don't have to go into like the deepest, darkest secrets that you have.
Yeah, no.
But it's like, and then the next day you feel a little more comfortable because you opened it already. And it's like maybe it's two things. Maybe it's one thing you want to work on. And then slowly after a while, yeah, you go deeper and deeper. And then you're writing about things. And I love what you said about the toxic relationship. Not that that happened, but like you just got kind of sick of writing about it. That's so interesting.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
I bet your whole life, you're like, wait a minute, suddenly my gut issues are a little better now too.
Yeah. Oh, funny how that happens. Or sometimes even worse, they get worse because you're like your body's finally feels safe enough to start showing these symptoms, which is a whole nother story or path that we could go on to. But a lot of times that will happen to people. They're like, I finally left this toxic relationship and now I'm like super sick and all my gut issues are worse. And it's like that's because your body finally felt safe enough to be like healing. You're not in that complete fight or flight where it thinks you're running from a tiger anymore. It's like, okay, she's a little more relaxed. Like I'm going to show her that we're bloated kind of or but I always kind of the example I always give is it's like in university, I remember when my mom, anytime she'd come and visit me, I'd get sick. And it's like because my body knew, oh, you're safe, your mom's here, she's gonna take care of you, and I'd get sick. And so sometimes that can happen with people. It's like you won't even notice any of your symptoms until you're a little bit out of that fight or flight, and then they're all like out of nowhere. You're like, whoa.
That actually happened to a client, and again, this is why I love coaching too, is like you wouldn't be able to get this if you had a one-off nutrition session, right? But it's
No.
like there were certain things that kept happening and she kept getting sick when her mom I think it was her mom come visit. And we were just trying to trace it back, and it was when she was a kid, she didn't get her needs met. They were great parents, but like they were both working parents. But when she got sick, the mom had to stay home. And so that was her way of attention, is she would get sick so that people would pay attention.
Ah.
And I was like trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and I was like, could this be a possibility, right? As she was opening up and she's like, oh my God. And like once we figured that out, we were able to, help retrain and rewire it, and it didn't happen anymore. It was like it was just crazy what
Oh
our
yeah, no, you're the awareness people, like that's why I always say my mission is to just raise awareness because it's great once you can kind of connect the dots or just even start thinking, it is crazy how easy it is to be like, oh, that does not serve me anymore. I'm gonna like let go. And obviously there's lots of different techniques and it can be harder for some people than others, but awareness is huge. That's why I just encourage everyone to just like write down your symptoms, write down some things about your childhood that you remember. I worked with a mindset coach, I don't even like to call him a mindset coach because he was so much more than that. But one of the part of the healing my inner child was like writing down my 10 worst childhood memories that I could remember and kind of like what I lost in that moment and then also what I took on. So say, you got called fat and you like remember this memory. So it's like, okay, I probably lost some of my self-confidence and I probably took on this belief that I wasn't good enough. And it was crazy because out of my top 10 moments, almost like 7 or 8 out of the 10, it was the same. I lost this and I gained this. And now oh, I just got goosebumps. It's like seeing how that now shows up in my life. It's like crazy. But if I never wrote down or took that time, I probably never even seen, oh, when my friend called me fat that one time, I didn't realize like that was actually like this memory that's burned into my brain that has probably shaped exactly why I'm even sitting in this chair right now. But yeah, it's just like you gotta take some time. But again, it might not be super easy to just listen to this podcast and go write down your top 10 most traumatizing moments. At that point, I had done a ton of work within myself. I trusted myself, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I like even hearing that, I'm like, ooh, like my body wants to like shut in a little bit, like, ooh, I don't I don't want to
I
do
know,
that.
right? But it's you can write down your 10 happiest moments too. That helps.
Well, you also mentioned you're like, I don't have the time. And I think that's so important to say because I was one of these people. I don't have the time to journal. I don't have the time, but yet I had the time to go to 7 doctor's appointments a week,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like maybe
It
more. I know that sounds
no,
dramatic, but it's
it's
true.
true.
It's like I don't have the time to do this, but I have the time to do track my food and answer all of these things and do, but it's like you have to take that time for whatever it is. If it's journaling, if that doesn't work, that's fine. There's thousands of different modalities outside of this, but just even take like breath work for 2 minutes, right? We all have the time. We have to make the time, but we also have to understand that it is. I think the people who always say they don't have the time is because they don't really understand or believe that it's playing as big a role as it is. And
100%. Yeah. And
um,
it's not like you're gonna write your first journal session and be like, I'm a changed woman, and then all your symptoms are gonna appear, right? Like I think I journaled every single day, didn't miss a day for like 4 straight years till you know what I mean? So it's like it takes time, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. Everything, like the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The thing that's gonna move the needle the furthest, everything is free. You don't have to pay for any of it. It's
yeah.
like sunlight, water, sleep, what did you journaling, like you know what I mean, but you're totally right. It's like it's not that instant gratification, and you're not going to know, you might not notice it right away. Now if I do a journal session, I'm like, whew, I feel better, but it's not like my symptoms are gone, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a journey for sure.
Yes, ain't that life? And I'm so glad we kind of shed a little light on the ups and the downs of this journey because I think it's important, right? It's not all sunshines and rainbows. Um,
Not linear.
no, not linear at all. But I think this is a good place to kind of wrap up and just let us know a little bit more on if somebody's listening, they're like, damn, that girl Lacey's awesome. I want to get to know her a little bit more, what she does. Where can they find you?
Yeah, you guys can come hang out with me on Instagram. That is my main hangout point. So my Instagram handle is at LACEEISKK. And then I also have a podcast, really all things like functional health, functional healing, and that is called The Wellness Effect, available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. But that's pretty much it.
Amazing. Yeah, she's a lot of fun over there on Instagram.
I try to keep it light.
Yep, yep. So definitely go give her a follow. If you guys found this helpful, would love for you to first of all just shoot us a DM if you're like, hey, that I love hearing little I call them little golden nuggets, that you guys got. Share this with somebody that you think might benefit from it because I know you guys know somebody that would benefit from it. And if you feel called, leave a review too. That is always helpful so more women can hear this message and learn from it as well. But Lacey, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Listeners, of course, thank you always for being here, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
See ya.